Venerable Suddhāso, would you be able to tell us a little bit about the history of the robes and why, say, for example, right now I'm wearing a really large one, you're wearing a really large one, and Venerable Soma is wearing a smaller one. What's the historical context for this?
Yeah, so there are a number of Vinaya rules which specify the size and shape of the various monastic articles that we use, including our robes. And of course, this is using a system of measurements from ancient India, so it's not so easy to say exactly what those measurements are. And as the centuries went by, then there developed a tradition of wearing robes which are quite large and which seem to be significantly larger than the size that was worn in the time of the Buddha. And this has become pervasive throughout the Buddhist world. There's some variation, so the robes in Burma and Sri Lanka tend to be a little bit less big than the ones in Thailand. The ones in Thailand are quite large. Outside the Theravāda world, interestingly enough, in Tibetan Buddhism, they actually wear a robe much closer to the original size, but they have other bits which they've added to deal with their cold climate. But if you look at the Tibetan style robe, they have an Upper-Robe which is much smaller than the Upper-Robe that you commonly see in Theravāda countries. And there's been occasional isolated movements here and there within the Theravāda world, asking, well, maybe we should go back to trying to use a size of robe closer to what it seems the monks were wearing in the time of the Buddha, and trying to calculate what that size would be and also how it could be worn. And some of the clues for this come from archaeology, so very old sculptures and statues of Buddhist monks, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, from within a few hundred years of the Buddha's lifetime. Also very old artwork, which again gives us a bit of a clue as to how people were wearing their robes, at least within a few hundred years of the Buddha. So these days there's a few monks who have actually taken on the practice of wearing a robe closer to the original robe size and style. So maybe we can see what the other venerables have to say on this.
When Ajahn Brahmali, who also lives in Bodhinyana Monastery, was translating the Vinaya, at some point he was arguing with himself and also sort of throwing it into the group of the monastery whether he should translate the Vinaya in modern measures, like using meters instead of Sugata spans, which doesn't really mean anything if you don't know what that is. So we were discussing about that size, what would have been at the time of the Buddha, and what does it entail for the size of the robes. So to get back a little bit, the size of the robe in the Vinaya for the monks is said to be, you can have a robe maximum size of 9 by 6 Sugata spans. And again, what is a Sugata span? Yeah, that wasn't recorded properly in centimeters or whatever, so you sort of left to guess. But the Vidati, that is the span, a standard or an average span, let's say, it's a bit of a, use the right words, is the width of a hand from the end of your pinky to the end of your big thumb. And if you use that span, which would be roughly like 20 centimeters or 25 centimeters, or a little bit less than a foot in American measures, then you would arrive at a sitting cloth, which is about, say a meter or so, I don't know exactly. Yeah, probably about a meter by a meter, which is perfectly fine, right? You don't need more than that. And you arrive at a kuti, which is about like maybe a little bit less than 2 meters by 2.5 or 3 meters or something, which is also perfectly adequate. You don't need more. And for the robe, you would arrive at a measurement which is much shorter and smaller than what many Theravāda monks are wearing nowadays.
It's kind of funny, actually. Do you know how I heard the history of how the big robe versus small robe movement came together and then fell apart in the early, I guess you could say early 20th century, late 19th century. Have you heard of this?
No.
Yeah, so actually the way that we know about these small robes in such detail now a lot of it seems to have come from research done by a prince named Vajrayana Warasa, I think is his name. He was the patriarch one of the patriarchs of the Dhamma-Vinaya. And I believe much of the research was done by him. In any event, I heard this story from a fellow monk. So apparently what happened was at one time, the Dhamma-Vinaya, when they were getting started, they were trying to reinvigorate the Vinaya in Thailand. And so they were doing a lot of study on the Vinaya rules and very strict in their application of the Vinaya rules. And it came to the robe size. So they actually made a rule. So this is an interesting thing about communal harmony versus disharmony, that everybody had to wear a small robe in the Dhamma-Vinaya. There was all these rebellions against it. Like, I don't want to wear the small robe. So it was a rule at one point. And then what had happened was they were kind of progressing and trying to have people wear the robe this size. And then one time a senior monk came into a room with another senior monk, and he was wearing this larger robe. And then the other senior monk who was wearing the smaller robe said to him, "Go out and change your robe." He was more senior than him. So that second senior monk left with his larger robe, and then he came back and he was still wearing the same size of the robe. And so after that, the whole movement actually fell apart. The other senior monk didn't say anything, and so it just kind of didn't take off. So yeah, it's interesting that at one point it was actually a standard, and then in the Dhamma-Vinaya at that time, to wear the larger robe, you had to rebel. If that story is true, that's what I've heard.
We had some of the junior monks that were very much studying the measurements and kind of working on creating, a robe of the appropriate size. And at the same time, during the same time, there was a layman actually who wanted to donate a robe, and he made this robe that I'm currently wearing, but of the quote-unquote wrong size. So he wasn't actually trying to make it small. Usually us bhikkhunis were a little bit smaller than bhikkhus, and so lay people normally give us really big robes that then we have to adjust. And so this gentleman did the other way around. He kind of underestimated my size, and made this robe because the robe that I was wearing was falling into pieces, so I needed a new robe. And when I put it on, I was like, "Oh, this is a little bit too small to wear it in sort of in the ways that actually both of you are wearing the robe." But because there were the younger monastics of the monastery doing their research, it occurred to me that actually was the kind of quote-unquote right size, the original right size.
So my personal story is, first of all, I also read the Buddhist monastic code, and when I was a young monk, or even before I ordained, and in there somewhere, Ajahn Thanissaro also argues that the 3 robes that the monks have originally probably were about the same size. So your lower robe would be about the same size as your upper robe, so that you could also swap them around when you were washing your robes. So then I started thinking, this 4 meter by 2+ meter thing that I have, if you really struggle, you can fold it and make it into the robe, but it was a bit clumsy. And I also read that part about the Sugata span, but I didn't make much of it, because everybody wears the bigger robe. Also in Bodhinyana, I want to make clear I'm the only one who wears it like this. Everybody just wears the roll thing. So I didn't think too much of it. But then when we actually, at some point, we wanted to chant the Patimokkha in Bodhinyana in English. Not every time, but just once in a while. So especially for new monks, that they also understood what the rules were about, instead of always chanting it in Pali. And then again, the discussion came up about that size of the robe. So do we translate it in X Sugata's fans, or do we translate it in meters? And Ajahn Brahmani's first translation, he converted it into meters. And so then he had some, I don't know what the exact measurements were, but let's say it would be 6 by 9, so it would be probably 1.5 meter by 2.25 or something like that. Yeah. And that is much smaller than the size of the road. So then a discussion started. And I was just sort of sitting at the sideline thinking, we can't chant this and all wear bigger robes at the same time, Then every time you would feel bad.
Right.
So I wasn't in favor of that translation in meters, probably in the first place. But another monk who is now no longer in Bodhinyana, he just wrote, but he said, he was a very outspoken monk. I really liked that guy. He was like, no way that the Buddha had such large robes. Because again, in the time of the Buddha, the robes were very expensive compared to now. And one monk who was an economist before he ordained estimated that a new set of robes in the time of the Buddha would be equivalent to a couple $1,000 maybe. Anyway, whether that's true or not. But then when that monk brought up, no way the Buddha had this big of a size robe, then Ajahn Brahm's response was, well, if that's what you think, then you should cut down your robe to size, because that's what the Pachidya says, of course, as you know. If your robe is too large, you should cut it down to size. And then the monk didn't actually do that, but I couldn't get it out of my head, because I kind of felt the same. And so then one day I decided to cut my robe basically in half, and the thing is, it still covers everything perfectly well, you see. So it's not like you are improperly dressed just because your robe is large. It's just you don't roll half of it up. And so that's how I personally got to wear it.
And then it also so happened that it was the time that we had started doing a lot of Tudong practice. And during that time, you just start relating also to the robe in a different way, right? I know that, Bhante, you do a lot of Chadika practice. So then, I guess being in the robe in a sort of more sedentary monastery environment versus walking out and about, especially in nature, one lives the robe in a different way. And in the former one can, at least my experience was that sometimes also other elements, kind of like the Sangati, can be a little bit more of a sort of ritualistic item rather than a functional item. But when one is out and about, like this clothing really has more of the original sort of requisite aspects to it. And so I started experimenting with the smaller size robe, and I found it very, very comfortable to be in. In particular, when we have to go one shoulder to two shoulders, like when we need to cover the shoulder. So it's as simple as doing this, right, with this model robe, and then going back and with that, as opposed to if the two venerables want to show.
I think I'd have to stand up.
Exactly, right? And so that the practicality, the ease of this form also strengthened my faith, actually, in the Vinaya, in the sort of the original rules. And I've been wearing it ever since.
But advantages is, first of all, it's not a practical one, but I'm pretty convinced that the Buddha would have worn his robe in a small size. Whether he wore it exactly like I am, that I don't know, but I just can't imagine that the Buddha and other monks at the time would have this excess cloth that they just sort of roll up, and which doesn't serve much of a practical purpose. So I feel very inspired to wear the robe like this, because it sort of brings me back to the time of the Buddha. And when I first put it on like that, it really felt like coming home. It's the same when I ordained, it also felt like coming home. and walking into a monastery the first time was like coming home. And putting the robe on like this also felt like coming home. So it's just really inspiring. It feels right, and that's the main reason really that I've been keeping it like this. But it also has practical disadvantages and advantages. One practical advantage is it's just I already mentioned that you can swap out your lower robe with your upper robe when you're washing, so you don't need to have extra cloth to wear when you're washing stuff. It also very easy to switch from single to double shoulder. I just do like this and I'm done, which is nice when it's cold.
Right.
Then you just, during a Dhamma talk, it gets cold now a little bit. Let me put it on like this. Oh, now it's time to pay respect to the Buddha. Okay, I'll put it like this, because then you do single shoulder when you pay respect. And it just is easy to it when it falls off, just like the other robe. But it's easy to put back on. Like, I remember when I used to travel in specifically in an airplane with the robe like that. As long as it stays on, it's fine. But when it falls off, you can't on your seat readjust it. Really, I can't anyway. So then I had to go into the galley and stand there. But this, if it falls off, you just put it back.
And just jumping off there with some of the advantages you mentioned, I noticed the same thing wearing the robes like that. It was kind of easy to throw over. And I remember we were chatting the other day too about rips in the robes.
Right.
How do you feel about that with this new style?
Right, that's a good one as well. That's actually, it comes back to the frugality aspect in a way as well. So monks will know this, nuns will know this, but lay people will not know that the robes usually break when you try to roll them up. Because then you want to look at it tight, so you roll it and then you pull it, and you roll it and you pull it, and then suddenly you got this whole tear in there. And this you don't roll up, so you don't get that. This is only my second upper robe, including me being a novice. So in more than 10 years, I only needed to change once, and it still can go for quite a few more years. And this is only my only Sangati since all those years. And the robes just last much longer because you're not like pulling on it all the time. And that is also an advantage in a way.
Yeah, I don't know if you found one of the things that I found with a really large size Sangati, very beautifully folded, and can be very warm. But I was always afraid to like unpack it because it meant you had to refold it. But I don't know if you've noticed it. I don't know if you've had the experience. Do you find that you use your Sangati more practically now that it's a smaller size versus when it was the larger size, very beautiful, but needs to be folded so that it looks nice? And then if you wear it, you've got to refold it. Has that been something that you've experienced?
Yeah, definitely. It can get quite cold in Bodhinyana sometimes of the year, and we wear like things like you are wearing now, like vests and stuff. But I also wanted to use my robe more often. So I was already doing that even with the larger size robe, but it was very clumsy, especially if you want to wear both your robes at the same time. If you roll them up then, and also this one is quite a bit thicker than the normal Sangatis are for the warmth. But if you don't roll it up, you end up with this huge ball. Kind of. By the way, that says in the Vinaya somewhere, you should not wear your robe like an elephant trunk, right? Maybe this is when you roll it up, it's an elephant trunk.
Hard to say, right?
First of all, a disadvantage. There's several disadvantages, but the biggest one, and which I actually don't like, but I have to sort of weigh these things for myself, is that you stand out a bit. Yeah. Actually, lay people don't notice. No lay people ever notices how you wear your robe. But if all the monks wear the robe the same, then I don't like to stand out like that. But there's one disadvantage. Another disadvantage is it's allowed in Bodhinyana. It's allowed here. Some other places I visited as well. It's all fine. They don't make much of it. You go to some monasteries. then they make more out of it. They say that this would be incorrect, or this would be like a lay person would wear it. So the disadvantage is if you travel a lot, you might have to actually change around, borrow another set of robes or something.
We're talking a lot about the practical benefits of using the robe this way, and I'm wondering if you've encountered any practical disadvantages wearing the robe this way versus wearing it the large way.
Yes, when there is wind. But that's because I'm a little bit stubborn, so I don't want to put pins or anything. So I feel like actually it's I just need to work a little bit more on my sati sampajanya. But definitely, especially for example, when one is wearing it in the Thai way with the roll, when there is wind, I definitely feel like I remember feeling a little bit more secure and like hanging on to the roll and keeping it quite adherent to the body. That made me feel comfortable that the rope wasn't going to fly away, as opposed to, sometimes I'm struggling a little bit, so I do put it in here sometimes.
Right.
When we're jumping in there to, like, again, practical disadvantages, we talked about some of the, of course, standing out is a practical disadvantage.
Yeah.
Or like potential lack of harmony in a community if one wants to like force that and it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
But just like nuts and bolts disadvantages with wearing the robe one shoulder, have you noticed any like nuts and bolts disadvantages, things that make it more difficult to maneuver as a monk if you are wearing the robe thrown over one shoulder, just thrown over both shoulders?
Not really, actually. Well, the two-shoulder thing, as I said, then your arm gets a bit stuck under there, which the Vinaya-Mukha also talks about. Actually argues that because of that, the larger size rope got to be, but I think that's too hypothetical. But I haven't found disadvantages. At some point my rope kept blowing up when it was windy, because the roll sort of helps with keeping it together. But then I just put a tag on it. Like the tag ends up being here, and it doesn't. I've even said in the back of in Thailand, when you go on Pinapa, and then you drive back in the back of one of those trucks or whatever,
right? Yeah,
and you're sitting in the wind and it was blowing, and the tag kept it all together perfectly well. So the tags also make more sense with this kind of.
So, do you ever see yourself going back to wearing a larger robe, or are you comfortable with this style of wearing and find enough practical advantages that you'd want to continue it, even though you may stand out a little bit as a practical disadvantage?
Yeah, I would see myself going back to larger rope if there is a community where they don't allow the smaller size rope. And when I've traveled to other places, that has sometimes been the case, and I don't mind going along with whatever people are wearing. It's not like it's a major deal for me. But if I have the option, I don't see myself going back.
So I didn't have particularly any type of pressure in terms of the size of the robe, but definitely I do think it's good. In my mind, what I guess I feel is very important is to harmonize with whoever I'm surrounded with. So if I would visit a different monastery and I'm asked to wear the robe in a different way, I would have no problem wearing the robe in a different way. I might ask for a bigger one though.
All right, so I was invited to show you a few ways to wear the robe. These are all from the Vinaya-Mukha. I didn't make these up. And some of them you'll also find if you look at the oldest Buddha statues, like the statues from Gandhara period. They also wear the robe like this. So that also shows that in that time the monks are probably wearing it like this as well. So I'll just show you a few ways to wear it. First, with single shoulder and then with the double shoulder. Like this. That's one way. You can also put this one. Like this. Other way. And the double shoulder. Like this. And then you can also walk and put underneath. And an alternative last way. No, this is your way. Okay. Okay. And you bowl like this, up in the path. Like that.
Sonder.
That's it.
Nice to hear your reflections on this robe. And as I mentioned, I was really happy to see a fellow small robe-wearing monk. We had some kind of nice conversations around that. Oh, you like that style? Oh, this is great. So hope that, see more small robe-wearing monks as an option, not as a injunction.
Right.
That the potential exists in the future to gain these practical advantages if monks want to, and also to feel that kind of connection if they feel it using this style of robe. So I appreciate you sharing your story and your insights into this practice.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Venerable. As I said, I've not talked about this before in this kind of setting, definitely. But to mention once more the Vinaya-Based, that's where the author also writes, you can wear your robe like this or like that, or like this and that, and I don't think it matters as long as you're covered properly. And if you go to some monasteries I've been to, you'll see that the monks, even if they all have large robes, they still wear it in different ways. Some are do the Burmese way, some more like you have it, and I think that should all be possible, and we can live in harmony regardless of how we look. But I also understand it. Yeah, in some monasteries they all do it the same. But I'm also very inspired to learn that you also wear it like this. Maybe some other people, with permission of their community, can do the same in the future.
Sadhu, sadhu.
So many merits, as we say in Sri Lanka, to both of you for coming on and sharing your insights about the smaller robe. It actually makes me really happy to see monastics wearing this robe. I mean, actually, I personally feel a kind of delight, like, oh, this is how people might say. I mean, we don't know the exact size, but this is kind of what it must have looked like at the time of the Buddha. So very happy that you are part of the movement that's maybe not like pioneering or pushing anything back, but that is maybe reintroducing that as a potential option in places where their communities are okay with it. And thanks for sharing the practicalities of it as well, because in addition to that heart connection, obviously it's the practical stuff that's really going to make it stick, going on Tudong and maybe keeping it for a little bit longer and also being able to switch it a lot easier. So, many merits to both of you. And Venerables Suddhāso and Venerables Soma are part of Empty Cloud Monastery in Italy, and had also started Empty Cloud Monastery in New Jersey, and the parent organization is Buddhist Insights. So I'll put a link in this video to their website, and if anybody is interested in visiting the monastery in Italy, learning more about what they do, then you can take a look at them.